All right, guys, coming at you from the pine thicket this morning. We got a throwback episode for you today. Today we're doing a throwback with our buddy Lyle Gilbert of Houndstooth Game Calls. We interviewed him a couple years ago, actually right before we started the video podcast. And we went up there to the Houndstooth headquarters, and Lyle cut his teeth hunting WMAs and National Forest public land here in Alabama. So in this episode, we have a really good discussion about that, about, just hunting these tough birds that get pressured. This is going to be one that's going to be particularly useful if you hunt public land, but also if you hunt a hunting club or a lease. If you got a couple guys in your club that turkey hunt, the pressure is pretty comparable to public land. I mean, I hunt both, and my club gets hit just as hard as the public land that I hunt. So we got a lot of great feedback on this episode when it came out. It was really helpful to a lot of people. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Last thing I'll say is Lyall, like I mentioned, is the owner of Houndstooth Game Calls. We partnered up with them. You can use the promo code Southern25 to get a discount on any of your Houndstooth Game Calls. We've been running the Dixie Hen Crystal. Really like that thing. And of course, there's my favorite, the KB Hen Mouth Call. Love that thing. So y'all go check those out. Use the promo code. It helps us out at the Southern Outdoorsman. Obviously, it helps Houndstooth out, and it gets you a discount. So don't forget to use that code if you can head on over to their website. And check that out in the link in the show notes. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go try to find a turkey. And you guys enjoy the episode. Appreciate y'all watching. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. We're sitting here at the headquarters of Houndstooth Game Calls. Mr. Lyle Gilbert. Lyle, how are you?
I'm doing well, guys.
I'm excited to be here, man. This one's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it has. It has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Jacob, how you doing over there?
Oh, doing well. I'm super excited.
I saw him combing that beard earlier, getting ready for this.
Yeah, I'm not, even though I'm on camera, but gotta look good. No, I'm excited. So this episode is kind of funny enough. So Lyle, when we first started the podcast back in 2018, you were one of the first guys we recorded with for a turkey episode. It's probably like episode 5 or 6, something like that, like super early on.
It was a long time ago.
And us being so new, that card got corrupted. When Andrew went to do the edit on that, it was like, there's no file here. And we kind of went back and forth about, we're going to need to re-record at some point. And now we look 5 years later and we're finally doing it.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about it, getting corrupted and all. Look, it happens. Look, we're better. We're better at what we're all doing now. So hey, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot's changed since then.
Yeah. Look,
man, back then, I think we were recording back then on a stand microphone, like one from Amazon is like $100.
Yep.
And we had the foam stacked up on like books or something next to it, and had you on speakerphone, and we're
Really?
recording into that.
That's exactly how we did.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Hey, I go back and listen to some of those old episodes sometimes, and the audio quality was not bad. I'm like, dang.
Relatively speaking. Yeah, no, I can't go back. I cringe every time I listen to those first 50 episodes. Oh, God.
Anytime someone's like, I started listening to episode 48, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, God bless you.
It took us 120 episodes to figure out how to not suck at it.
Well, you got it going on. You got a good following, good name. Heck, I enjoy listening to it. I've learned a lot from it.
I appreciate it, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about Houndstooth. I mean, you got a good thing going on here. You got a nice little shop going on. This is the first time we've been here, and it's pretty impressive, man. You got this place stacked out.
Yeah, it's stacked out now. It won't be stacked out here in a few more weeks, but we're we've been here. Heck, I've been in I've been right here in this shop for about 3 years. So it's grown, and y'all can see there's boxes everywhere. So we need a little room.
Well, before we're going to talk a lot of public land turkey hunting here and kind of how you cut your teeth on national forest. But before we kind of do all that, I am curious about, from owning a call company and, turkey hunting and y'all's turkey calls are like such a big part of what y'all do. When we're doing deer hunting content, what does it look like here, building calls and everything, getting ready for springtime?
Man, honestly, it is. First of all, I've got a pretty good crew of young people that come in here and work, and they do some of the. When you come in here, there'll be pots laid out across here. We'll be, I'm usually one gluing. I can't let them do like just everything. but like packaging and I mean, my wife now, she's quit hair.
Yes.
She was a hairdresser for 28 years, and she is now finally quit the hair business, and she is full-time turkey call mom here in the shop to all the young folks. And she will have this thing, it'll look like a manufacturing line down through there, and I just kind of just direct me where I need to be or what I need to do, or hand me what I need to do. And I'm generally cutting calls and building like mouth calls and stuff, and so it's crazy around here. From November all the way to about 1st of May. So it's a big undertaking.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I that's the one thing I guess people don't realize from like call companies, especially like you, that you're trying to build inventory for orders that are coming out.
That's right.
Going into like late winter, early spring, where some people, like your diehard turkey hunters, they're thinking about turkeys 365. Or like the average guy, myself included, it's like hardcore deer. Then it gets to about first week of February, like, oh dude, it's time to switch gears and get ready. Where you guys are doing that so much sooner than everybody else is, just to try to catch up on orders and then get ready for even the online orders and everything else. So
you're exactly right, because like when May rolls around, we're not thinking, oh, turkey season's over. We're automatically switching gears and we're rebuilding for the next spring. So, and it'll take me the whole entire summer, and we just never stop. That's the only way I have learned to be able to be ahead of the curve. Like, we had our best NWTF convention. Every year it's grown. And then when we come back and start putting stuff back on the shelves, and I mean, it's literally like packing up the shop and going there. It looks like we haven't been anywhere. And that's when I know, hey, I'm doing it right. Because I have been in there when I came in there and I didn't have nothing to put on the shelf. And I was here all night, like 7 days a week. And, I'm 46 years old. My wife's 47. I can't do the 2 and 3 a.m.s anymore. I really can't. I've done too many of them. So it's, we never stop thinking about the turkey.
Well, again, before we get into a lot of this, public land hunting and kind of your background, I want to talk about, first off, like, how long has Houndstooth been around, and what was the inspiration for starting Houndstooth?
Well, we've been around 12 years or so, and the inspiration for Houndstooth, it came, and that's kind of where your podcast with Matt, all that collided with me and Matt, beginning to know each other. Matt wound up, I was actually, before I really knew Matt, what really got it started going was I was at junior college in Scuba, Mississippi, and I needed a part-time job. And a friend of mine, which is one of my best friends now, Chris Crow, owned a company called Magnolia Steel out of Meridian, Mississippi. And I worked my way in there, working just odd jobs on the farm, and then I started taking deer hunters, and then which we entertained in the construction field, and it came to a point where I started taking a few turkey hunters, which I loved. That was my favorite. Anyway, that's what I was made for. And I was actually leaving. I was graduating junior college, and I was leaving Scuba, Mississippi, come back to Tuscaloosa, and I got a phone call from Chris. He said, "Hey, would you like to take over this farm?" I was like, "What? Take over your farm and be over it and the hunting and everything?" So I did. I moved right back to Scuba. And from then, for the next 10 years, that's what I did. I mean, that's pretty much was my job. I took care of everything, turkey hunters, deer hunters, the fishermen, managed the place, kept the lodge up. And that in a nutshell is what really kicked off that, hey, I turkey hunted every day almost. I always had somebody take. So that kind of kicked off that vibe of wanting to build a turkey call. And so I met my wife. I ended up moving to Tuscaloosa to have a little bit better life, kids. I had a stepson. And anyway, as soon as I moved back, part of that property ended up was another landowner that was leased, and my good friend dropped that lease, and that family had 8,000 acres on the Noxubee River, and they wanted to outfit. So I ended up back there on the weekends guiding, and Matt joined forces there guiding as well. And man, by that time, I'd already dabbled into, making. I had a neighbor that was a excellent woodworker, and he taught me. I said, "Hey, let's build a tube call." Build a tube call. Ended up building a box call, building a pot call. Then I started finding a little bit more into the mouth call stuff. Started building the mouth calls, and after that, Houndstooth was kind of born. And heck, I was buying timber at the time as a procurement forester for a company out of Greensboro. Every landowner you met that had any land, they had turkeys. And what better, hey, I'm going to cut you a little timber and you want to buy a few turkey calls. The next thing you know, you're turkey hunting with them and buying their timber. So you can't beat that. I mean, that goes hand in hand there. I mean, so I also ended up with an angle on buying timber. But as I kept on with my career in timber, it got to a point where it was literally, my wife came home one day and I had an air compressor in my kitchen. And it was, it was just blowing air out the thing. I was whipping out mouth calls on my new hydraulic Cadillac press. And she looked at me, she said, "You got to have a shop." And it was at that time I was like, man, I've come from here out of my garage and in my kitchen and my office. My house was horrible. It was turkey. You couldn't turn without looking at a piece of, a turkey call, latex, some wood, some pots. And, I was lucky. I ended up, I get tickled. I was told somebody the other day, there was a thing I watched about, it was Steve Harvey of all people. And he was giving his little thing about jumping, like take the jump. Because if you don't take a jump, you're going to fall on, you're never going to know. Mm-hmm. And if you fall on your face, it's all right. You get right back up, jump again. And I took that big jump. It was like my little life story right there that I knew, that I didn't know would ever become what it has and bring the people into my life that it has. And here we are. It's really, somebody the other day was like, "Man, you think I can, what if you had to do it over again?" I said, there's no way I could do it over again. I don't know how I got here now. Think about it. Think about when y'all started, to get your name out there. Facebook ain't the same Facebook to get your name out there. It's pay to play. And now that dollar doesn't spend like it used to.
That's right.
To get your name out there. So there's a huge curve that other small businesses now are trying to fight to grow, and just to get their name out there. So I would love to say I'm some smart businessman, and maybe I have made some right decisions to get here, and I guess I have, but I don't know how to do it again.
It's almost like you got to be so young and dumb just to like take the jump and you fail, you fail. It's not that big of a deal.
When it came down to day one, and my wife was like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "I'm going to find a shop." She says, "When are you going to find a shop?" I said, "Right when I get back from Ohio from turkey hunting with Dr. Childs." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Hey, got to do it."
And see, that's the cool thing when you start talking to guys like yourself, and we've interviewed like Mike Pentecost too, and it's like you talk to guys that had this idea and created a business out of it, and then kind of look up in like every 5-10 years how things have changed, because y'all been going for roughly about 12 years now. It's crazy to kind of see like what's the next 10 to 12 years look like. Yeah. And again, like just being die hard with it, but also having a leap of faith, kind of like me doing the podcast, and not to kind of get segue or switch the show from being like just turkey hunting content and everything to kind of like the life lessons, but it's like you jump to the podcast and do that full time and take a massive pay cut. But it was one of those things like I told Andrew, like, if it fails and don't make any money, and for just not being successful, I'll go back to doing sales like I did previously and been extremely successful with, not that big of a deal. But again, I have a lot more fun doing this than I did, making a lot more money and also being more miserable.
Look, you just got to stay, keep your nose pointed north.
You said something there that you mentioned a lot of like 1 and 2 a.m. nights. Like, I'm sure we've had our fair share of those, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh man,
that's the kind of thing it takes, man.
I think back and I go, I mean, how did we do that? And I had 2 children. I mean, and I had one child. He might as well have been a night walker. You couldn't outlast him. You could put him in the bed to 2 a.m. and you could pass out in the chair in there, and you come in there and the cabinets would be open. Like he'd climbed up on the top of the counter and walk the cabinets just looking for something to snack on, you know. So I don't know how, you know, it's crazy from where, you know, I came through it and started it. Maybe every call maker their story's the same. I don't know. I'm sure it isn't, but that's mine, and I'm just lucky, I guess.
Well, I'm excited to kind of get the conversation and kind of talk about, like, from your passion for building this company to, you know, what your passion looked like before the company when it comes to just turkey hunting, and kind of how that journey kind of inspired you to do what you're doing now. But, like, first off, what about specifically turkey hunting makes you so passionate about, not only from like your company standpoint, but also just personally when it comes to like turkey hunting? What does turkey hunting mean to you?
Man, it goes back, as you know, to my father. Man, I like, we were just talking about Columbiana. I was, you know, pretty much raised up there, and my dad, I would go every morning before school. I mean, there was nothing. That was the one thing that my dad loved to do, was turkey hunt. And you know, it just, and I was fortunate enough to have a great place to go turkey hunting, close to the house, literally close to the house. Like, I was 12, 13 years old. I could have drove there. But it was, you know, going with him, experiencing the, you know, hunting turkeys. And then as I got a little older, and I just, hunting is so personal, and the wild turkey is something that's so personal that, yeah, it's not, I mean, I know deer are pretty, a lot of people are the same way about deer, but man, it's just something you open to a turkey, and hearing him answer you, and then figuring out your mess ups, figuring out you know, your wins that you, of course, when you kill the turkey. But it's, I would say my passion was, I had a father that never told me no. When we, you know, turkey hunting, hey, every day. If we missed that morning, we went that afternoon. So, I mean, I've tried to raise my kids the same way and never tell them no, as long as they're doing right. And that was the way he treated me. But man, if you wanted to take something away from me, make me make good grades, it was turkey hunting. I was a straight A student, if those words come out of his mouth. So, man, it's just something about it. I mean, and it's always consumed me.
Well, I want to talk to you before we kind of dive a little bit further into your turkey hunting career. Early on, like, what were some of those lessons you learned from your dad turkey hunting, and what was like his style of turkey hunting versus maybe what you do today?
His style of turkey hunting. I'm sitting here thinking, the first thing when you said that, I instantly, one turkey hunt popped up in my mind. But he, you know, he wasn't that different. I guess he was real patient, and Matt, I tell you, like, I'm probably the most patient turkey hunter you'll ever be around, because they've when we guided together, he'd say, man, you just beat them to death till they came. And I would hunt them. If they gobbled, I would stay with them. We'd never make it till lunch. My hunter would be famished by the time we got there. But I was a winner, and I was going to win. So, you know, my dad was patient that way. And, you know, the calls that we had back then weren't the same. I remember watching those Primos videos, learning how to cut, and, you know, everything you wanted to do was cut. And my dad was just a little old, you know, he'd get in there with a double reed and he'd go, yep. That's it. And he'd sit and wait. And but that one turkey hunt, I was thinking, we were on a turkey, and it was down there, in Jointown. You ever heard of Rocky Ridge?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Rocky Ridge Hunting Club, the cemetery was right there, right down the road from us. And there was this hill, and this turkey was up there. He was gobbling. And I told Dad, I said, I'm going to break off from you. You know, you get over here. And man, I was pouring it to him, cutting every breath. Turkey was gobbling. I heard my dad go, meow, 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 just 3 or 4 times on a double reed made by Jerry Gardner out of Harpersville, Hard Dixie game calls. Anyway, and that turkey literally ran over him. We'd been there an hour. And he killed that turkey. He had hooks on him, and he didn't rub it in. My dad was never like that. But buddy, you talking about sour? Sour wasn't the word for it. I was a bad loser. But that was my ride to the hunting club, so I couldn't be too sour about it. But just I can see my dad sitting there, just patiently waiting. But the one thing that was cool about my dad, he didn't care if I wanted to pull out a box and yelp for 30 minutes straight. He'd sit there and he wouldn't say a word. And I've hunted with some guys that just, man, if you made the wrong move, they just take it to the point where you didn't even want to hunt with them. So I've always tried to be more like my dad with my kids doing that. So I guess I can owe it all to him on my passions.
With your dad, because I'm always curious about these more old school turkey hunters, and kind of that's a common trait with all of them. It seems like is very patient, and it seems like, of course, they were in an era, depending on like when your dad started turkey hunting, that there wasn't just a ton of birds, and it seemed like the skill set from a lot of those guys was more of a patient approach to it, because you didn't know when that turkey was going to come through there. You might have heard them, but they didn't seem like some of those guys had a ton of opportunity with just an absolute ton of birds. I don't know if your dad was like that, but I mean, what was like his background kind of getting into turkey hunting from what you're aware of?
Yeah, he was growing. I remember some stories of him growing up in Livingston, and it wasn't near the turkeys that there were when I was growing up, of course, but it was a more traditional way of hunting, and even if you go back before my dad going to our family farm down in Sumter, my great uncles loved to turkey hunt, and my great uncle, just sitting there thinking about that, I mean, he was that kind of guy that he had a little push button. He'd yelp 2-3 times, set it down. And I guess that's, with my dad, that's kind of was the fashion. And then, of course, when I finally got really serious into turkey hunting, I guess, we were watching the Primos videos, watching Will do his thing, and or the Cuz Strickland and whatnot. So, I can remember listening to my great uncles talking about shooting paper hull shells, killing turkeys. My great uncle John he would go out there and pick a peach leaf or a honeysuckle leaf, and he could yelp and cluck with the best of them. And that's what he'd pick him 4 or 5 and put them, in some paper towel, moist paper towel, and he'd take them hunting. So, I mean, literally, it's so. As far as traditions, that of course, I don't have the patience. I have a lot of patience, but my dad he was just glad to be out in the woods, which showed me more about it than anything.
How important do you think woodsmanship was to not only even like your generation, your upbringing, but even like for them as well?
My dad, being a forester, he was a great woodsman. And he could tell you everything in the woods. He could tell you any bush, and that was his benefit. He was a great woodsman, and that played out on his turkey hunting, just kind of like that hunt. He knew kind of what that turkey was probably going to do, and he let me fail on my own by let me branch out and go over here, go over there, So, his woodsmanship skills was great. They still are. I mean, to this day, he doesn't care about even having to go hunt, but he loves to just walk and look at the different trees. And man, you see that deer been blah 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 eating on that, and so it's a neat thing to watch his just knowledge of the woods and everything. I mean, you can't beat his. I mean, he worked in it all his life for 35 years.
Absolutely. And it seems like those guys, again, guys like that, like they understand how to move through the woods. They understand, and it kind of goes hand in hand with that patience aspect of, sometimes less could be more. And that's kind of maybe how they've learned to be so successful, those kind of groups of hunters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can think of several people in his age group that I hunted with that guy, Jerry Gardner, was one of the best I ever set foot in the woods with. If you had to bet on somebody, you could bet on him, and he could slip away from you. You could be set up with him. He'd slip away from you. You wouldn't even know he's gone. He wouldn't tell you. You just all of a sudden hear something, look, and he'd be gone, and he done moved 100 yards over here and just let you kind of do your thing. But he was, man, he was a heck of a woodsman too. He hunted with me growing up in Columbiana, and I always loved to hunt with him because, He was probably his top of the game on doing stuff like that. He understood so much about, the turkey.
I'm curious in talking a little bit about your background and some of those life lessons you learned as a young turkey hunter, especially maybe like back in high school, middle school, getting in high school, maybe starting to get the opportunity to potentially drive. What were like some of those life lessons you learned as a turkey hunter back then that maybe still applies to you today, or something that's really kind of carried on from that you learned from like those experiences, especially like starting to maybe hunt by yourself more?
Man, I tell you what, turkey hunting is woodsmanship is huge for sure, but you can tell so much by the turkey that you're on what you might need to do, that it's almost like a mind game. And I guess that's one of the things that's cool about it. Like normally your young childhood is full of just mess ups, and then you kill a turkey or two. I mean, I can remember when I killed a turkey or two and thought I knew what I was doing, and then I didn't kill another one the rest of the year. And I was around turkeys all the time. And as you get older, you start recognizing things. Different turkeys have just they have different personas, just like me and you. And you can recognize things with them. I've hunted turkeys on the national forest where be on them for 2 or 3 days and just couldn't figure out why you couldn't kill them, and leave my mouth yelpers in the truck and grab a trumpet and yelp to him. And instantly it was like a key that unlocked the door. And he came to you like a 2-year-old. Or a scratch box, or, something of that nature, a tube call. So in my mind, as you're growing up, it's just full of mess ups. You just got to go. Turkey hunt's something you got to go and fail at to get good at. And then once you kind of you start noticing the little things that's going on in the woods, I can't think of how many times that, like you go get on a turkey and he quits gobbling about 7:30, 8:30. To this day, grown people see it on the national forest, see it in hunting clubs. They're gone. Man, what if he just sat there another hour? They're not just going to stop gobbling. Now, there's days that they do, but eventually he's going to say something. And that's where the patience falls in that you don't have when you're young. And it is so much trial and error. And, when I just feel like when a turkey gobbles and I create that dialogue with him, I can kind of figure out what's going on, or just kind of like how his day's going. And then I can adjust from there. And then the woodsmanship comes in, and then it just amplifies your success. So if you put 2 of them together, it's unreal. I mean, your success rate goes up. Because like when we were guiding, me and Matt, we literally on eastern turkeys, we ran pretty much 99% on those farms. Now, they were not high pressured, but now we were turkey hunting them 4 days a week. So maybe you want to call it pressured trucks, whatever. They're still turkeys. And at the end of the day, there's turkeys that I left there at the end of the season. They just, hey, they whooped me. I may kill them the next year. Who knows? I don't know if it's the same turkey or not. But those little things that once you kind of, and especially once you become familiar where you're hunting, man, that just adds to the woodsmanship side.
Hey guys, Andrew here with an in the field tip. If you're looking to get more proficient with a mouth call specifically, I recommend going with a call like this. This is the KB hen from Houndstooth Game Calls. And the reason I say this is because of the cuts on this call. A lot of the bottom reeds are exposed. The bottom reeds are where you get your clean notes. So with a call like this that's cut and has a lot of those bottom reeds exposed, it's easier for you to channel your air and find where that clean note is to almost produce like a whistle or a squeak. And once you find that, there's the front end of your yelp. And then the top reed with the cut on it is where you get your rasp. So if you're trying to figure out how to do that clean 2-tone yelp, I recommend something like this, the KB hen, to get started. Find that high note, and then you'll be off and running. If you want to check out the KB hen and a bunch of other mouth calls, go to houndstoothgamecalls.com and you can use the promo code Southern25 for a discount.
Hey guys, it's Jake. I got a quick tip for you in this podcast. One thing I've been working on over the last year is trying to figure out how to be less bulky really while saddle hunting and mobile whitetail hunting. And the biggest issue I always had was I really liked really large packs, and the problem was outside of certain points of the season, like when it got really cold, I never used the full capacity of some of those really big backpacks. One thing I started doing is using a smaller pack that has a lot more expandable capacity, so you can still pack a lot of stuff if you need to, but it's also very streamlined. It's super easy to go in and out of the woods with, especially during early season or just when you're not packing a lot of cold weather gear. This is the Latitude Ranger 22. I used this all last season, and I could pack a surprising amount of gear in that pack, specifically a bunch of cold weather gear, both bibs, jackets, extra layers, along with a platform, or when I was hybrid hunting with a small little lock-on, having a small lock-on on here as well, along with my sticks. And this backpack works really well with that. So if you're in the market for a new backpack and you're trying to streamline what you're doing, I'd really highly recommend looking at the Ranger 22 from Latitude Outdoors. And you can check out the Ranger 22 at latitudeoutdoors.com.
So outside of turkey calls and a shotgun itself, my favorite piece of gear I've ever bought when it comes to turkey hunting is a red dot sight. And my new favorite is the Vortex Viper enclosed red dot. So most of the time, I'm just using the 3 MOA dot. You know, I like just a clean single dot in my sight picture, nice and open sight picture. But I've already run into some situations this season where I'll actually switch to the reticle that is a 3 MOA dot with a 32 MOA circle around it. And the reason I like that reticle is because it allows me to see my nice little point of aim where I'm going to put that dot on the turkey's wattles, but also that circle is going to show me roughly where my pattern is going to go. And for me, it just makes it a little easier to visualize where my pattern is going through the woods, which helps me determine whether or not there's too much brush in front of me, or whether half my pattern's gonna catch something between me and the turkey that I don't want it to hit. So I really like that multi-reticle option, and I think you're gonna like it too. So to check it out, along with everything else that Vortex offers, head on over to vortexoptics.com, or you can just hit the link in the description of this show.
All right, guys, we got another in the field tip for you today. One thing we're doing right now while we're out here scouting is looking at overlook spots and overlooked by us. One thing we always do while we're in the field is using our tracker on Onyx Hunt to be able to not only see where we've gone, but where we haven't been, and that's what we're gonna go look at. So today, we're actually gonna work up into a drainage that we haven't been to before. We've walked all around it, but we haven't been up in it. And again, it's a very important factor of using the tracker so you can see where you have been and where you haven't. A lot of times those places you haven't been is your overlook spots. So if you wanna try Onyx Hunt, you can download Onyx Hunt today and use the code SOUTHERN and save 20% on your membership. Do you think it's important, especially for like a newer turkey hunter, to really find some birds, like whether they're on a hunting club, whether they're on a lease, public land, national forest, whatever, find an area to learn it and really try to stick with that area instead of jump around so much to try to build it that woodsmanship, but also have the birds use that area?
Yeah, I agree with that. Pick you out, whatever you think you can cover. I would pick out at least, 600 to 1,000 acres and become familiar with that. I mean, once guys kind of get that edge of the woodsmanship and the calling, then that's when they leave. And that's kind of like, you kicking them out of the house. They go over here to the next hunting club and they walk in there and they kill a turkey. They've never been set foot in there. It's where all of that just comes together. And I wished I could say that there's a magic potion that just creates it, but it's not. It is being able to read that turkey, taking that woodsmanship, putting that together, and that's when the magic happens. That's what when you put, and you don't have to be a great caller, but when you put those two things together, there isn't a turkey you can't kill. You may not, I say that, you may not kill him, but I guarantee you're going to be that much closer to killing him, if not having I know you'll have a higher success rate, 110%.
So how your kind of journey as a turkey hunter then, are those some of the things that helped you out when you were hunting national forest, for instance? Because like we mentioned before, the first time we talked to you, we talked 100% about national forest stuff.
Yeah.
That patience aspect that you just talked about is something like I can relate with, because I told someone the other day, I've kind of found myself kind of drifting towards that side of, you have people who are like real hard run and gun guys and then like real patient guys. And I've just had a lot of luck where I'll sit there for an hour or so, and 45 minutes in, here he comes.
Right. And I'll give you a scenario of how my morning on a national forest or WMA always starts. It is a little different. I can't tell you how many times I go to a gate, breaks daylight, you don't hear nothing. nothing. And I'll literally be there till 7:30, 7:45. I don't ever like haul butt to get back into the back, because every time I ever go to the back, they're at the front.
Yep.
So let's start at the front. Start at the gate. So I start at the gate. Generally, if I haven't heard a turkey, by good daylight, and that's usually you know when to move, and it's not when everybody's running around after they haven't heard anything at their gate. That's when I just settle in, and I'll go pick me a tree, and I'll get away where people don't come by. Look, I don't like people coming by and just staring at me. Like when they go by, even if I'm on my own land, I go over and hide behind a tree. I don't want I'm turkey hunting. I don't want to talk.
Yep.
So I go over there, find me a little spot, and I'll sit down, put my gun up against a tree. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard a turkey that cranks up, and the later it gets in the season, the later they crank up. It's darker in the woods. Once they hit the ground, they seem to get acclimated, and then once they get acclimated, they'll gobble on the ground a time or two. But as the season gets, it's darker in the woods. And anyway, so I can't tell you how many times I found a turkey that way. And of course, I'll ease in there and try to kill him. But if I haven't heard a turkey, I'll go to another spot that I know of, and I don't go to these spots, and I don't owl, I don't crow. I really just listen. And I will park and I'll sit and listen. If I know a turkey's there, then I might ease on in and just, slip in there. And, the thing about most of the national forests are hilly. I always keep that high ground. Don't ever leave that high ground. I don't care where you're at. That bottom looks beautiful. But I've always said, hey, if you can keep the high ground, you got, half of it whooped. At least you could make him kind of come up to you, and not every time you go to the bottom they usually side hill you. Because most of these forests and WMAs are pretty open, and but that is normally how my morning will start. And I tell you, I've sat there at those gates and sit there and actually hear a turkey strutting, because you on a still day up in those hills and it's so open, man, you can hear a turkey way further than you can walk. And but the thing about, I hear a lot of people about going, hey, I walked 2 miles in. Well, most of these national forests, most of these WMAs, their openings are the roads. That's where they pick gravel. That's where the gravel's at. That's why I guess I've always heard more turkeys around those roads versus deep down in there in the forest, or, wherever you're at. And in Alabama, you can't, down this way, it may be different up north where I know y'all have hunted just about all of them. I don't know of a place you can go 2 miles without crossing a road.
There ain't many places.
Bubba's going to be standing on the other side, so you might as well be ready to hunt with Bubba.
We talk about that all the time. You most of the time in Alabama, and there's places in Georgia we've hunted like this, Tennessee, you're just walking right back into pressure,
You're exactly right. So that's my whole point. Start at the truck, you can hear, and you're mobile. And, if you're going to call from a road, don't use a box call. Don't use a mouth call. Use something different. Use a trumpet. Use a tube. I found a lot of turkeys from the road by just easing up to, I would always get, I'd find me a ridge and I knew there was a big bottom there. And then Toyota Tacoma, I'd ease up there, park, walk up to the top, yelp off in the bottom. Didn't hear nothing. Ease back to my truck, go on to the next, wherever another ridge or spot I knew I could call from. And they can't hear you on the other side normally, especially in Toyota. I was just idling through. I was trying to be quiet, but that can save a lot of leg work in it. There's some places you can get in trouble in some of these places.
Now, with the listening thing, where you like to just go out and listen, that's an interesting point, because we all want to go out and make something happen. We want to go and crank on a glass call or something, or a box call, or a crow or something in the middle of the day. But when you're going out, you're saying you like to go and get on a ridge top and just listen to an area.
Yeah,
is this an area that you've scouted already, looking for turkeys?
The scouting aspect of it, first of the season, turkeys are going to be in drainages usually, and then they start moving up. Especially around here. That's what I found. So I don't really get I feel like if I get in a drainage, I'm roping myself into that drainage, because I can't hear over the hill. Mm-hmm. Can't hear over that hill. I can hear that way, say north and south. That's it. And if you're standing in the drain, you're looking one way. Let's just call it north or in the south. So I will go and listen. I would tell anybody to go and listen if you can, and everything's cool with the WMA and or National Forest wherever you're at. I mean, it doesn't hurt to know, because the one thing, like, the National Forest doesn't have that many turkeys per acre. I don't feel like it does. I don't feel like it does now. It had more, way back when. I may be wrong now. It may be full of them, but my whole deal was to cover ground, but I would do it patiently. And I had time to do it patiently. I mean, I would leave on a Thursday. We had a company meeting in Greensboro, and I would go to Duncanville, and I'd just slip around through National Forest or whatever, So, I mean, but heck, that's been years ago doing that.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually started doing. I don't know who I was talking to that talked about doing it. It might have been you at like a trade show or something. We were just talking, and going back in an area. I feel like, especially on a pressured place where you're just kind of letting them do their thing, and they can kind of get fired up on their own, and you just kind of slip in there and take advantage of that. I mean,
yeah.
It works out a lot of times. Like you either see or miss or kill the turkey. It seems like
you're exactly right. They're always, usually when you hear one, he's pretty hot, and once he starts to gobbling, but it's just something about it. If you'll spend, say after you left that first morning spot and you go to the next spot, spend 35 minutes just chilling out at the next spot. Don't even say a word. I don't even leave your calls in the truck. Just sit there. You'll be surprised what you'll get in tune to, and you'll hear. But you gotta have the patience to do that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had a guy come by and be on a turkey, and that turkey would hear that gravel popping, and man, he'd be gobbling every breath to that truck. When that truck stopped, he shut up, be quiet, just as quiet as he could be. A guy'd get out, yelp on a box, or mouth yepper. And then as soon as that truck door closed and that gravel went to popping, he'd go back to gobbling, kill him. And the guy never knew he was there. All he had to do was just sit there. Just patience.
Now, in those situations, you talked about you've gotten to a point now where you can almost kind of get an idea of how that turkey's feeling, how his day's going and everything.
That's exactly right. That's
what
what
you
I
need
feel
to
like.
do.
Yeah.
So, how are you making a decision? Like when you hear one, let's say it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you hear one gobble 2 or 3 times, what thought process goes through your head? And I know this is probably a lot of experience, so it might be kind of hard to explain, but what goes through your head? Like, oh, I need to yelp to this turkey real loud. I need to go and get real close and just cluck and purr him in. Like, what's your thought process?
Well, generally speaking, and me being hunting here in Tuscaloosa County, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I have the high ground to get to him. I don't want to go low to him. I don't want to have to climb up above him or go around him. I'm going to try my best to come in over the top, some form or fashion. And depending, you can yelp at a turkey. If you ever yelped at a turkey and you yelp at him and you have that pause, and then he gobbles, and you're like, did he really answer me?
Was he gobbling at me?
Was he gobbling at me, or was he gobbling at a blue jay over there? And then you give it a few minutes, you yelp at him, and he just, sits there, and then he gobbles, and you're like, he's trying to figure out if there's something up right now, So that's when I go, hey, maybe I need to do either change up a call, pull a trumpet or wing bone out on him, and just try him there. Because I've always used that on high pressured areas to kind of take their temperature. I've had turkeys where you could pull that out. You walk that ridge and got in there, and you yelp at him, and you instantly know he's digging it. I mean, he cuts you off, and those are the things that tell me, hey, either A, I'm going to be here a while, or B, I'm going to kill this joker right off the bat. And a lot of times it's that way. But taking his temperature, creeks, stuff like that, I can't tell you how many of them that creek, like where we were on a river, a small river like Noxubee River, or even up in Tennessee along the Duck River, that you catch a turkey gobbling his tail off, he's by himself, but there's a creek and somebody's hunting with you, then they're like, let's see if we can't find another turkey. man, if that turkey's answering me and I'm kind of creating that dialogue, there's a good chance if you play him right, he's going to fly. As long as you don't get too close to him. If you get too close to him, he's just going to sit on the bank. But if you can keep that 150, 100 enough to create that dialogue and make him just, he knows that you're good ways off. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've made turkeys fly the creek just walking towards them, like I'm digging them, and then I get up there and hang up on them, and then, get to a point where they shut down. They just quit. All of a sudden, they quit gobbling. You know what's fixing to happen. It just happens. And, I mean, not to drag off the subject of what we're talking about, but it goes to being able to read him and recognize those things that'll help you be more successful. You may be passing up a turkey. We would have passed up several turkeys if it wasn't for, no, I'm going to hang out right here. He's gobbling. I'm going to stay with him a little while. At least give him, 45 minutes.
Yeah, when you the thing about getting them across the creek, when you said that, a hunt instantly popped into my head where I did not do that, and man, they lured me in, dude. I found myself standing on the side of the river, staring over there, like, well, I guess I bumped them.
We were just talking about moving in on him on the ridge, and I know people are successful at it, and even say when he's on the roost, man, I want to get as close as I can to him. Every time I get close to a turkey like that, I do not kill him. Very rare. If I can create that distance to paint him that picture, I'm that hen that he wants today. It just seems like it works way more often than it does by trying to get close. And I can't tell you how many times I slipped around a ridge on a turkey and he was just right there, and I'm gonna cluck and yelp at him, and he's gonna come up there to the top and look, and man, that joker never shows up there. He doesn't. Now, they may do it on these northern turkeys. They're a little different. But these here at home, man, they're evil. They're evil. They're the toughest turkeys I've ever fooled with.
Yeah. What is it about something like a trumpet call, do you think, that gets them? Because you're not the first person I've heard that from, where especially on a higher pressured, it doesn't even have to be public, but like a hunting club that's getting hammered, someone busts out the trumpet call, and, I hear a lot of people say they have good luck with it. Is it just because it's a totally different sound than most other guys are making?
It's got to be. That's the only thing I can figure. When I first bought a trumpet, I had actually went over to Georgia and hunted with a guy on some public land, and he helped a turkey up with me. I was giving him fits about the trumpet. I was like, y'all got those little magic wands around your neck. I said, this is so cute, And let me tell you something. They scolded this old boy over there. They scolded me enough. I called up a guy named Billy Bice. He's one of the best trumpet makers. And I called him up. I said, Mr. Bice, I got to have one of them trumpets. He said, all right, son. He said, that'll be $180. I said, I giggled. I said, did they call you and put you up to, like, I put my foot in my mouth so bad. I thought that was a joke. I didn't know those things were like $180. I bought it. I had to. I didn't put my foot in my mouth. I wasn't going to go out like that. But I came back with it to Mississippi. I'll never forget. I was sitting at a coffee table with a bunch of deadgum good turkey hunters and in Mississippi, in Scuba. And they were all, man, turkeys are done. Turkeys are done. They weren't killing nothing. In about 3 days, we cleaned them out. Every time we found a turkey, I had the first turkey I called up with a trumpet. I'll never forget. I popped my head through a hedgerow, and there was 2 gobblers up there, and I had my son with me. I said, let's back up and get up in these cedars over here, give them a little distance. And I yelped at them with a mouth yelper, nothing. Yelped at them, cut at them with a mouth yelper, nothing. I said, let me pull this trumpet out. I yelped on that trumpet, and they hit me back so hard. And I was like, wow. And gave them a few minutes, yelped again. They'd cut the distance, and we doubled. And then the next turkey, the next morning, I killed again. And we had a great – so, yes, it is something to do with that sound. Same way with the tube.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, because I've heard guys out west talk about that with elk hunting, where Primos came out with that, like, hoochie mama or whatever it's called, and that call is so distinct, and after a while, like,
that they recognize it.
It's like they recognize it, and then someone comes out with something different, and what you said about the guy with the box call on gravel roads. Like, that's probably one of the worst things. Like, man, I'm going to be honest. I don't know.
And they're always a long box because you can hear those things 3 miles.
Yep. I don't know if I've ever killed a turkey just yelping them up with a box call, and I've
done it with box calls. I like our box call. I use it mainly if I want to locate something. I'm walking. I'm on a hill and I'm walking a ridge or something. But now I have killed a lot of turkeys with a single-sided lynch box, enough that I wore a thumbprint in the side of it.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, look, man, that was look, you could take my money, my dog, but you ain't taking my lynch box. that was it.
Yeah, and I wonder if I've had an experience similar. I've talked about it on the show a couple times where I heard a guy come crunching down this gravel road, walking down the gravel road, but he did the exact same thing. He walked, hit a box call, and then kept going. And I had a turkey gobbling, and he shut down, and then that guy gets out of earshot, and he started right back up.
Yeah, it is exactly what I'm explaining to you. That's telling me right there, you're a patient guy. You're seeing what I see, and if patience, I mean, knowing when to move and be aggressive is one thing, but knowing when to stop and take it all in and just sit back for a minute, examine everything. That's gonna yield you success. I mean, time and time again.
Yeah, and almost maybe bringing something out in the woods. This is something I've done. Bringing something out in the woods is gonna occupy your time for a little while. So like, I'll bring some kind of lunch, and about 11 o'clock or 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'll sit down and eat the lunch. I might even take my boots off. And I get to a spot that's high up, and I'm like, I'm just going to be here for an hour.
I ain't ever taking my boots off unless my feet are wet.
So I did that one time, and I killed a turkey with my boots off. I got a picture.
Oh, my gosh.
With my socks and everything.
My feet are so tender, I don't even take my shoes off till I get up to the edge of the bed.
Oh, Jacob gives me hell for it.
You tender-footed, too?
I'm not taking my boots off. Yeah. No, I'm not taking my boots off. Because listen,
he's afraid to get the snake bit.
I see these guys get these socks. They put them on. They slip up there to them turkeys. I'm like, dude, you wouldn't. If I take my shoes off, I'm going to be right there until I get them back on.
Well, listen, I told Andrew, he's talked about this before, just sneak it, trying to get close up, some bedded deer or something. I'm like, dude, all it takes is one timber rattlesnake. And I'm like, ain't no way in hell.
Let me tell you something. Look at me. I'm a big old guy. I'm 294. I don't sneak on nothing. Look, Matt, if one of the best stories ever. Matt was so serious, and we were crawling. He was in. We had a customer together, and he's like, he's leading the pack. I said, Matt, you just lead the pack. I'm right here. I'm here for whatever I need to do. And he said, get on y'all's knees and crawl. And I'm like, dude, my knees are so bad, I ain't crawling for nothing. But anyway, I go ahead and bite in on it. I'm crawling. And we get up there, and Matt looks at me, and I'm like 1.5 feet taller than everybody. Matt's like, get down. And I got my head up like that, and I go, and I said, Matt, that's as low as I'm going, dude. Y'all need to ask him about that. When they said, Matt, you need to get down, I just did my head like that. I said, that's as low as I can go. My head won't go any further. I ain't got much of a neck already. I mean, I'm challenged when it comes to crawling. So, therefore, I've never, it's just like fanning. I had a guy I was turkey hunting one time. This is when I don't ridicule people for doing anything legal, but that's by the law. And he wanted me to kill this turkey so bad. He said, man, take that thing and show it to him. I bet I crawled out there on them rocks about 10 yards. And I was like, I'm hiding, showing it to him, and I'm like, man, this is for the birds. My knees, there ain't no way I'd have killed that turkey. So I shimmied back. I put it in reverse, and I got back. He goes, you ain't going to do it. I said, man, I ain't built for this. I said, if I can't yelp that. So I have that motto, if I can't yelp him up, I ain't going to crawl. I ain't going to fan. I just ain't built for it. I ain't built for it.
I mean, you got to get good at calling, man.
Look,
isn't that right?
I suckered old Matt one time like that. I got him in an ant bed, though. Y'all need to ask him about the ant bed story. I'm sure he probably forgot about that.
Dude, we need to get both of y'all together here one day and record a podcast with all of us.
Please do.
That would be fun. That would be a good time.
Because I have so many cool memories of working and guiding turkey hunters, and man, I look. I'm so thankful for Matt's friendship and what we've built together as far as friends, and man, Matt's been integral to this company, and that's why we had the strut marks.
Yeah.
You know.
Now,
Well, Andrew, not to segue, I want to step back to one thing, Lyle, that you mentioned, which was, a lot of times it seems like these turkeys are fairly close to these roads. And, if you hunted anywhere in Alabama, Georgia's like this as well, in places I've been in Georgia, you got a ton of gravel roads all over the place, dirt roads. And I've seen that. And, you'll find strut marks going down, a major dirt road or even a big logging road right behind the gate, 80 yards behind the gate where guys are parking at. And it's happened to me. It's happened to Andrew. It's happened to all of us where, like you said, if you go in, I'm going to go in a mile back to this big creek drainage, all this kind of stuff, they're gobbling back by the truck.
Yeah.
It happens almost every time, like you said.
That is where the gravel is. There's gravel. There's usually the side of the road is great bugging. And as, hens start to nest, they nest around those roads too. And I can think of two different, I can think of one turkey that I knew he was there, and I went down there to check him about mid-morning. That sucker, he ain't gobbled. I figured he heard me drive up in my truck, and I waited and waited, nothing. And I literally drove past him. I drove down the road, was leaving. I looked up in my rearview mirror, and that sucker crossed the road. I said, that joker knew I was there. That's how in tune they are. Mm-hmm. But they have to be on these anywhere.
Well, especially if they're living around those roads. And that's one thing I wanted to bring up is the whole idea of sometimes kind of going back to the whole less is more. Sometimes the idea is you can walk as far as you want to. And I'm not going to, I've done it. We've all done it, gone 2-3 miles just in a loop or something in an area.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, there's no turkeys here. And then you get back to the truck and there's tracks close to, there's a hunt me and Andrew went on some timber property where we did this big loop on this place. There was a bunch of birds on it, chasing birds around all morning, just not getting close enough. And we came back. I think Andrew shot one next to the truck or close to the truck.
I did. I sure did.
Yeah.
But we got back, and there's turkey tracks, fresh gobbler tracks between where our trucks are parked, right off the side of the main road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it had just rained the night before. I'm like, he walked through there during daylight, right between our trucks.
And I killed him.
Yeah. He killed it. Anyways. But it's like, that's something, and with you talking about it, kind of hits more home for me. You can find birds super far off the road. Of course, they can be there, but there's sometimes it's like a lot of other guys are doing that, and it almost it sucks them closer to access. And those birds might be a lot more quiet. They're not the ones that burn up the woods all the time, but when they do gobble at 1 or 2 times, you should be able to make a play on them if you're in that position and you're not super far back in there.
And they don't roost very far off those roads. I mean, they don't. I had not, one year I didn't hunt any. This was a particular piece of public land, and it had been a year or so that I had not been there. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go and hunt so-and-so. So loaded up my truck and got there, nothing gobbled. Sat there for about 30 minutes. I kept hearing, whoop. I'm like, there's no way I've taken a year off from this place. Come here to the exact same spot. And there's a freaking turkey roosted right here to the right of my truck, strutting on a limb. And no scouting, just going off what years passed. And sure enough, he was 100 yards from my truck. But that's what he was doing. He was flying down. And once it quieted down, he'd come out there and strut in the roads. I've seen them strutting. I mean, they'll strut in the roads, they'll pick gravel, and they'll walk those roads.
Have you had much success around clear cuts? Fresh clear cuts where they strut out in those fresh clear cuts?
Yes, but from growing up to now, when I was growing up, they didn't do so much herbicide on them. And if you went in there and say you have found a 40-acre clear cut, there'd be 4 or 5 turkeys in it. It was a great bugging area, especially late in the year. There'd be 4 or 5. Now you might go find a turkey in it because, it's biological desert. Literally it is. We're better farmers and we're better foresters, forest managers, and herbicides. You can thank that too.
Interesting.
So, they like to get out in it. I'm just stating that the numbers of turkeys I see in the clear cut, using the clear cut, isn't like it seemed like it used to be. And maybe that's just me, but that's just what I've seen. made a living for 10 years making them. So I feel like I ought to know a little bit about clear cuts, being around them all the time, and so forth. But yeah, I mean, there's always some turkeys around a clear cut, especially range or something like that. They get out there, but when you take that greenery away, what's there to eat but strut and pick up some dirt, a little old gravel, you know.
Now, on the subject of being kind of like low key when you're out there and talking about these gobblers next road, that kind of made me think about we're just sitting here talking about how good it is when we sit there and just kind of like take it all in and listen and learn stuff. And that's that turkey's whole life. You know, that's all that he's doing, you know. And so when you kind of think about that and think about maybe your entry into an area and what kind of noise you're making and everything, it's like, are you tipping them off to let them know that you're there?
Oh, yeah. You know you're tipping them off, especially if their home range is right there where they're spending so much time around the gravel road. You know, it's, I mean, public land hunting is different. It is a different animal. You got to go about it different.
Mm-hmm. How does your calling factor into that specifically? Because we talked a lot about like yelping and a little bit of cutting and stuff. What about like the real fancy calls, like keying and doing little feed whines and stuff like that? Jake yelps. Like, do you ever find yourself doing that stuff, or are you sticking more with the basics?
I do. I'm gonna tell you, I have killed some turkeys that were straight up. I don't believe if I could a key run, do it well. I mean, just do it in general. I don't think I would have killed them. Like literally, and you know, I've even had some instances where somebody busted up a flock by accident. Actually, it was a logging crew. The turkeys were roosted over where the logging crew was starting up cutting they were cutting in a big power line, and they ended up busting them up. And man, when I started kicking that turkey was on me so quick, like I almost didn't even get to kill him. But yes, I 110% agree on being able to do those different. And Jake yelps even more. Jake yelps, yes. I can't tell you how many turkeys where I call that the kitchen sink. You know, that's the last, hey, I'm fixing to throw it at them, and you'll be surprised. You can paint that picture of jealousy for them. And man, they like to fight. I mean, turkeys are fighters. I mean, they whooping other turkeys off the hens and, you know, hit Jakes and fighting with Jakes all the time. But the Jake yelp, if you can learn to do that, I can't tell you how many times that more so than the kiki. I can count on my hand how many times I've done that with kikis. But now learning how to Jake yelp and creating that picture of something moving in, that is one of the best tools in the world to do. And it's easy to do to me on a mouth call. I mean, you're just slowing down a yelp and kind of in your mind thinking, I'm going to deepen the sound. It ain't got to be perfect. I mean, I wouldn't win a contest with a Jake yelp anyway, but I'm not there to win a contest. I got a contest, but it ain't the contest that other people thinking.
I mean, honestly, to me, a Jake yelp seems like it'd be easier for people to get than that like pretty two-tone hen yelp.
It is. And I tell you, it's easy to do on a friction call too, right in the center. Just take it, cup it up against you, and just like you would run a mouth call, but you're doing it with a peg, right in the center. Just yonk, 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 yonk. Make long strokes with it, with the striker, and man, it sounds as much like a Jake as anything. And it's easy to do on a friction call. It's a little bit harder for me to do it on a slate, but like a glass and that titanium does it as good as any I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. For me.
Now, with the Jake yelp, if you're saying that's kind of the kitchen sink,
the chicken sink.
the chicken sink. If that's kind of like your last ditch effort, what is a situation where you're busting out a Jake yelp?
Well, it depends. You'll know once you get on a turkey, and you can feel just by listening. You'll know when that turkey's either A, losing interest, or B, he's in a pasture and you can watch him. That's the best. But here in Tuscaloosa County, we've got so much timbered areas. It's hard to, you're just judging off of what you're listening to. But if that turkey starts to slide, and when I say slide, he's moving off, or he's kind of you got a feeling he's fixing to catch that ridge and be gone. Why not? You're not spooking him by doing it. It's kind of like a deer grunt. You ain't really spooking deer grunt. Dude, I can't tell you how many. You're there. You found a gobbling turkey. What if you don't do it? What if you don't grunt at a buck? What if you don't use a jack yelp? I mean, it's just a tool. I mean, I have yelped like a hen and watched a turkey run to the next country. So what are we losing?
I want to bring up, when you're talking about the calling, especially on national forest, I'm curious in talking with you about the tone and the volume that typically you would use, and does that change based off, like, say, like national forest, where maybe it's fairly high pressure versus if you're on, like, say, like a leash or something that, it's only you and maybe a couple other guys hunting it. Do you change like the tone or the volume of some of those calls? I mean, do you like bring it back down a little bit on more of those pressured birds, or how do you like to kind of present that when you're trying to work a bird, especially if it's one that's not just crazy gobbling the roof?
When I find him and he's not gobbling a lot, I'm going to be very timid with him and just see if I can't warm him up to where, I can talk a little bit more looser with him, yelp at him a little bit stronger or whatever. But my calling doesn't really, that's a good question, because when I sit back and think, I can think of turkeys I cut, yelped hard at them, killed them in 20 minutes on the national forest. And then I can think of turkeys that, I couldn't kill them with nothing but a tube. They just answered the tube. And a tube call is, I'm good with a tube call, but like it's hard to strike a turkey and finish a turkey with a tube. But if they're digging it enough, you trying to muffle it down, kind of cup your hand around it. But I don't really change what I do per se because I'm on public land on that. Now I may interchange a different type call more than I do that. But I mean, at one time I was hunting public land. I didn't have a trumpet. I had a tube, and it paid off in dividends, but I usually use the tube to find the turkey. Once I found him, I switched to a mouth yepper, and then, the learning the different calls just beautified that, and, whether I could have killed that turkey with a trumpet or not. But I don't really change up my calling style as far as that goes. I mean, I do think that me building calls and yelping so much has helped me. It's got to help you. At some point, it's there's situations I believe that realism, plays a factor. And then I know friends of mine that are excellent turkey calls that they're the farthest from realism, but they're consistent. It doesn't, not that they sound bad, but they don't sound like a lot of people out here. So, I mean, I don't know what y'all think about that, but I don't go in there and just soft yelp and do that. I'm probably a little bit more aggressive than just a soft yelper all the time.
But I guess you're not as aggressive as with like locator calls or stuff like that, especially in the morning. It's kind of letting stuff play out and trying to, work an area.
Well, sitting there thinking about that before, and I didn't mean to cut you off if I did. One thing that I can say as I've gotten older, like a 2-reed mouth yepper, people laugh at a 2-reed. They go, oh, I got a 3 or 4 reed. I can get volume and all that. A lot of times when I find a turkey, I like a 2-reed, like a batwing, because I can yelp. Like once I kind of get that dialogue, a lot of times I'll switch around on the tree. Just I'll sit kind of on the side of a tree where I can turn my body. And once I've got that little dialogue going with him and he's doing his thing and he's trying to make me come, and, I'm not budging, he's not budging, I'll cup my hands with that 2-reed and I can roll it over so low. And it sounds like a full-blown yelp, but it's at a different tone, like loudness. Let's say, it sounds like I moved 60, 70 yards. I can't tell you how many times I have pulled turkeys that were hung up. And my son is like one of the best. That dude can yelp so low. I've seen turkeys tuck their wings and drop down and come down a 40-foot bluff, and you blow their head away at 20 yards. But that is probably more of a useful tool to me than anything is being able. And you remember me telling about Jerry Gardner? Jerry had that same yelp. It may not be the same call, but he was, man, you can throw your voice with soft. It's soft, but it's just like if I were to do, say, a loud, strong 4-note yelp. Think about being able to, you got to put a lot of air across a 3-reed call. Well, a 2-reed call, I can do the same thing, but I can do it a lot lower. And then when I cut my hands, you can tell just me and you talking how much all of a sudden that changed. Well, when you change and do that and you turn and there's a holler right there, it sounds like you moved 100 yards. I mean, that's why I could never pin Mr. Gardner in the woods, because he would yelp like that, and then I'd turn around and look, and I'd be looking for him like, sounds like I thought he sat down over there, and he'd be over here or he'd be right there, and so you couldn't pin him. And that is a cool tool. I mean, you can't beat that, in my opinion. People may laugh about that, say, "Oh, this nonsense." Well, it's nonsense till you do it.
Well, it's a skill set. Again, it kind of goes back to the woodsmanship. It's like a skill set that you can bring out when you need to. Again, act like you're putting more distance between you and that gobbler.
Right. That's right.
So like, oh, that hen's walking away from me. I got to go investigate.
The one thing I noticed when I started doing, when I really kind of started playing the turkey that way, I stopped shooting. You know how a turkey, 9 times out of 10, what does he do? He comes in there and you kill him at about 40 yards, 30, something like that. They don't never walk over you strutting at 10, 15 yards in Alabama. Well, let me tell you something. When you can throw your voice a little bit like that with a 2-reed yelper, you'll find out they'll get a lot closer because they can't pinpoint you. They had you there for a minute while you were creating the dialogue, and then all of a sudden you just changed the dynamics of the whole thing, and it sounded like you moved down there, and now got to know when to quit. And it's not giving him, playing him for 30 minutes that way. A lot of times of the turkeys that we've killed, I might go off and then come back, but I'm just doing it with cupping my hands, making it roll over, and then, 10, 15 minutes, it ain't working out, and I might actually come back, turn towards him. Y'all have seen people, do stuff like that, I guess, but those are some of the things, man, that kill turkeys. They kill turkeys here.
It's a combination, it seems like, of all those different things, like being able to slip around and pay attention to your surroundings and read that turkey and know when you need to make that kind of call, and knowing the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
You got that holler behind you, and, I don't know, maybe you're making that turkey think that you went down in there, and he's like, well, I'm just going to go get on the side of that thing and look down there at her, or whatever he's going to do. And it's kind of like all these things come together, and that's what makes a really good turkey hunter.
You're exactly right. And it's almost too much to put into a podcast. I don't know how anybody can learn this without, just like what we were talking about, getting started turkey hunting. The only way you can do it is fail, and listen to other people. Once you kind of have mentors and stuff, man, they'll lead you to the water. I mean, you'll find a friend that's a little bit better than you, has a little bit better edge. You may be a better duck hunter, but he's a better turkey hunter. And those little things, that's just like this year. Hey, I thought I was a heck of a duck hunter, and I went with a guy named Jim Ronquist.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you something.
I
didn't know nothing. But by the second day, I had that joker. He had me going just right. We were good. But yeah, I mean, there's somebody out there that knows more than you. There's somebody out there that knows more than me. But these are the things that I've noticed that work for me. And the only way that you can learn those things to get your little groove is to get out there, chase some turkeys, fail a little bit, succeed a little bit, and then put it all together, and then you got something.
Absolutely. Lyle, we're sitting at a hour 8 here, so we'll get close to a point of wrapping it up. But I want to get into something. By the time this episode drops, it'll be almost turkey season in Alabama. It might be turkey season in Mississippi. I don't know exactly when we're going to drop this, but it'll be getting close. It'll be mid-March. So thinking like mid-March time frame, what are you doing to get prepared for turkey season? Like, are you going out and listening every morning? Are you going and looking for scratch? Like, what are you trying to do to get ready for opening day?
Well, being a turkey call maker, one of the not so lovely things about it is is that I don't have a whole lot of time to do scouting anymore. And it's I'm lucky I do, and I guess that's because I want to keep this business going, keep it going, keep everybody happy, shipments going out. But on the, if I'm preparing, I'm preparing for turkey season is more or less me going, hey, guess what? Turkey season's in. I'm going in the morning, and I know of a ridge that I can at least find a turkey off of, and I have some history with it. Now, if I back up and say I didn't have this job, I would be out there. I'd be looking for scratching. I'd especially be looking for scratching low because they're in the acorns and stuff right now, what's left. And they're going to, and listen, mark those spots as you think, as the season goes, turkeys start getting more up higher on those hills and out of those bottoms and stuff. But historically, just like over there in Mississippi, we had that big Noxubee River right there, man. Turkeys, when opening day came, you could hear turkeys for miles down that river. There wouldn't be nothing in the hills. By the end of the season, those jokers were all around those hills and ag fields and stuff, and everything changed, and few turkeys down there on the river. So, me getting prepared, is different for everybody else, I guess. That's probably, I hate to make it a dull subject, but it's I guess, growing up and stuff, when you wanted to get prepared, we were so in tune with the land. It was just a thing. I mean, that was just normal. Hey, let's go out. My dad would let's ride out there and ride around, and he'd have him a cold one, and I'd learn to drive the truck out there, and, oh, there's a turkey. Well, I know he's going to be here at the slab, and then we'd see a turkey over here towards the graveyard, and that was consistent. I see people on YouTube. They're beating the bushes and stuff, but turkeys are so vocal. Unless you need to know the land, then yeah, walk it. But I'm usually going to a listening spot that I can hear before season. And then, there's mornings that I don't get to hunt, but I might run out there and listen for a few minutes and just take note. If I've got a spare minute, and then usually I run late because I break the rule and I go ahead and go hunt. If it's turkey season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Lyle, we appreciate you joining us for this podcast and inviting us down to the shop and be able to kind of do this again. I'm excited to get this podcast out for the listeners to kind of, learn a little bit more about you and again, kind of your background when it comes to hunting, because it's fascinating. Guys like yourself who, you've had success a bunch of different places, but specifically like what you've learned and applied on the national forest and even some of these higher pressure, hunting clubs and stuff you've hunted is super fascinating, and definitely we'll have to have you back on and again, get Matt in here as well to kind of talk through some of these different stories.
Please, we've got to do one, me and Matt. There's so many good stories there, and Matt's precious to my family. I mean, he is family to me. So, that's I can't wait to hear his podcast too.
Oh, it's a good one. He knocked it out of the park. But
yeah, he did.
Lyle, as a point of wrapping up, if anybody's interested in learning more about Houndstooth game calls or anything else y'all are doing, how can they follow along with you guys on social media, but also y'all's website? Yeah,
make sure we have a Facebook page that we keep going every day and throughout the year, and then of course Instagram and houndstoothgamecalls.com on the website, and then if you need something deeper than that, get on there and call me. Perfect. I mean, I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, Lyle, thanks again for joining us for the podcast. Listeners, appreciate y'all joining. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you share it with a buddy. And good luck to you guys this season. We'll catch y'all back here for the next episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast.